Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of my live cash gameplay and explain series. At the moment, we've got two tables of 2K at the top and two tables of 1K at the bottom. Already in a spot in the top left, we squeezed the small blind to 15 big blinds after we faced low jack open from, assuming a reg, and then hijack flat, cut off flat. Cut off is clearly recreational. Hijack is a little bit unclear. We flip top set, not a bad way to start the session. How do we want to approach this? I think we just are going to continue with small bets here. Quarter pot is probably our approach. I'm going to be more inclined to check if I think the recreational is going to just like stab randomly. And I think we are like when we're up against a recreational, and we have sort of ace queen, ace king, we may not just bet this board pure just because we're expecting to get a lot of flats from behind. Okay, turning quads, not a bad way to start the session at all. Pretty confident we're going to win this hand. I think when we turn quads, we have such an invincible hand here. I think check is going to make a lot of sense. We're probably going to be doing a lot of checking on this board anyway. I think our overpairs can check, and then we're also going to have some give ups from our overcards. I think we're going to be playing a fair few checks, and then obviously when we have quads here, it makes complete sense to put this into the trapping range. If this goes check check, then it's a question as to whether we reopen river for either small bet, reopen river for jam, or whether we check. Obviously just hoping that he fires all the money in right now. So on the king river, I don't expect villain now will ever reopen, pocket tens or anything like that. And this is going to be a card that when we have bluffs, we're going to follow through pure. I imagine like if we don't do the betting here, this is just going to go check check far too often. So I think we should do the betting ourselves, and there's going to be, some combos. He's going to have some king queen. He's going to have some ace king potentially. That are like clearly going to call us on the river here. I think we fire it off. And we can also get called by worse than a king when he sort of just like, puts us on a random bluff. Is the idea there. I think we do have to bet though, even though we get the folds. I just don't envisage that card is going to be reopened as a bluff from villain kind of ever. Okay, top right. So we flop the flush draw against the big blinds. We go for a bigger bet. Kind of just like, against a reg, going to be checking a lot of range here, but against a recreational, just like kind of happy to build a pot for when we actually hit our hands. We get click raised. I think we're just going to continue with defend here. This can be some mergy hands. Wow, this is just like a hot start, just turning the flush. This is going to be some mergy hands, some 6x, some 5x, and then also some random junk. After we face check, it's another spot where I don't expect villain to check here and then reopen river for a bluff very often. So we're just going to go for some small bets, hope to get called. Probably go with third pot on turn, and then jam river ourselves. Face a really quick call. Hopefully we're not running into a boat here. It's going to happen, a non-zero frequency, particularly when we face jam, but we're just always calling here. Excellent. We win against the straight. Pretty nice. Villain had also flopped the straight. So pretty nice turn for us. Yeah, so hot start, hot start to the session. Unfortunately, that recreational did just leave the table. Whoops, we might. Okay, yeah, we were the big blind. I'm just going to sit out of the top right. I might sit in orbit here, just make sure that the player rejoining isn't another recreational, but it looks like this table is now just like full of regs and, seemingly pretty tight regs. Like I don't think this is really going to be a spot that I want to be playing on super often. I'm just looking at the recreational top left, looks like he was flatting 9-8 offsuit from the small blind, which is just a valuable point of data. Yeah, flatting 9-8, flops trips, checks it twice, goes for another small click raise, and then like 3/4 on the river, the value. Okay. Gonna defend the queen 10, hold the 3-2, start with check, and just take a note on this guy, flats 9-8 off from the small blind. And click raises value. Okay, this guy, I mean, his betting frequency isn't high off a small sample. I kind of have the impression from the again, tiny sample that we've seen that this guy's going to be quite aggressive, likely to get out of line. So when we flop top pair here from the big blind, not really inclined to do much folding really at any point in the hand. Obviously, the turn 8 ace is not an amazing card for us. It does bring us a double gut shot though, so I don't think we'll be folding on the turn. Yeah, we'll continue with call, and for what it's worth, against this size, it's not impossible for him to be betting a worse hand, like queen 9 potentially. Yeah, definitely continuing for this price. Don't improve, and so then it's just whether we want to hero river. So he's gone small, small, okay, and then doesn't fire river. Just see what he had. Okay, so you have the king 9 for just like a gut shot, which is fine. Interesting, doesn't follow through river as a bluff. Single raise pot. That's small. Twice. Doesn't bluff. River. Folding these hands. And just... I mean, so we're seeing this guy VPip. I haven't paid enough attention, and the hand replayer doesn't work particularly well when I've been sitting out. Or at least I can't see what hands he's actually had up here. Yeah, the hand replayer isn't actually showing me anything at all. So I'll just need to pay some more attention. 10-7 suited against the recreational. Do we want to flat this? I don't think it's the most absurd thing to flat this. 120 big blinds deep against a recreational here. We definitely want to be playing more pots, and neither of these players look, super aggressive behind us. That's obviously going to be one of the risks of flatting button. Not that like flatting button itself is a fine strategy to have, but you're going to be, the more aggressive they are behind you, I suppose the worse flatting the button is going to get, as opposed to just like re-isolating. And just going to be folding the 10-7 suited here on the turn. This guy's still playing just like a high VPip. We might try and just like hop back into that table if we can. If we can get the same spots. Yeah, he was just playing a high VPip over the 6 hands, which like obviously doesn't mean anything on its own, but obviously the recreationals in the pool are going to be playing the high VPip. We didn't get the same table. We've got everyone fully stacked, but 3 stacks that are like over 200, which kind of means that the money's been flowing around a little bit. We'll sit for an orbit, see what's happening. Probably fold the 6s here. And so bottom right, we've clearly got a recreational here. Possibly a recreational with the VPip. Again, sometimes the VPip can be skewed by the small sample size. And then bottom left, possibly no recreationals. Like this guy, well, this guy's probably a recreational or at least a bad reg, but is playing tight, which is not going to be a spot where we're going to make heaps of money. Twos will open again into a weaker player in the small blind. We want to play sort of as many pots as possible, and particularly if we aren't getting, punished super hard by the players behind us for opening, slightly wider than we would normally. Okay, the good run keeps coming. Flop a set. Multi-way here, just going to continue with just like lots of small bets. And the ace-7 suited here, we can probably continue with 3-bet or call. It's both are going to be fine. Continue with call and just going to be check folding there. So we're going to start with a small bet here. Expect the recreational to continue with overcards a bunch. Yeah, just not much we're doing against this sizing. Now, how aggressively will the reg attack us? In a board that like favors the big blind. He might attack, quite aggressively, noting that also he can then isolate against the recreational. So when he raises to this size, I expect it to be value driven. A lot of the time. I expect it to be value driven because I don't think too many people are going to bluff raise into the recreational when this guy's going to call heaps behind. That said, I don't think we should 3-bet. Well, if it's a value-driven range, like we can 3-bet and get it in. The challenge is we are like pocket twos. We are actually just losing to a bunch of his value region, right? Like ace-3. As to whether he has 6-3 suited, he may have 6-3 suited. He probably has it based on my opening size, and then pocket 4s and 5s are all in range as well. We obviously are like still have a hand that beats value, right? Like we beat 5-4 suited. Okay, the king-9 suited, we are going to find a fold. And note this guy is a recreational just based on his sizing. The ace-2 bottom left, we can check or bet. Both are going to be okay. We might go for check raise. And I just don't see us getting away from this hand. I guess we're just going to call and call. Unless river is particularly bad. The safe river. Maybe the good variance is just like all disappeared in this hand. Down? Okay, he checks, which is nice to see. I think we can go for raise here. An okay combo to do so. So can we jam? I think we can jam for value. We're going to have some. Or do we have the misdraws? I think we jam. Somewhat thin, but I don't think many people will trap us here. Be really sad when we get called by 4s here. That like we're too scared to go for value or something. Yeah, and it's like, what are we going to get called by? So we go for the raise on flop here. And we have now an opportunity as to whether we want to double barrel here. So it's probably a good double barrel candidate, blocking his ace jack, blocking his pocket 2s. We can improve on a 2, we can improve on an ace. That being said, okay, so we earn 2, so we river 2-pair. I was going to say, that being said, and then particularly with his full timing on the turn, not going to follow through as a bluff on river. Now when we actually get there, yes, we're going to lose sometimes to pocket 4s. We're going to lose to ace jack. We are also just going to beat, a jack that doesn't believe us. And I think we do have to now go for the jam for value. Based on the quick timing as well, like maybe he's just got king jack that's not going to fold. Okay, we shove and get it through. or take it down, which is not the worst result. Didn't want to get snapped there, certainly, because we certainly didn't have 100% equity there. I'm going to fold the king six. So it's been a busy start. Is this guy recreational? Not sure. Let's see if he rebuys, like whether he auto tops up. Otherwise, he might be a recreational. Okay, he has topped up, so maybe not. And we want to just keep an eye on this player at the top right, which I haven't been doing at all. Just given that 3.5 big blind open size from the low jack, not going to be a size that many regs are going to be using, so assuming a recreational player. King 10 off here will peel. Flop is 8-9-4. Start with check. Do we want to check raise this at any candidate? Certainly going to be check raising it when we have spades, hearts, or diamonds, and so have the backdoor flush draw. When we don't have that, it's a little bit more dicey. The hand that probably wants to continue versus third pot versus half, it's much more unclear. And it's not going to perform particularly amazing in the call line, which is why I'm thinking about it in the raise line as to how well it's going to perform. I think we can go for raise. It's probably a little bit out of line, would be my suspicion. But again, people are probably not going to defend appropriately versus raise is going to be the assumption. So we can sort of move a little bit beyond GTO to the extent that this is, not a raise in GTO, and just say that we don't think people are going to defend appropriately versus the raise. And so therefore we should raise more frequently than GTO. So we get the 6 of hearts on the turn. So obviously our 10-7 gets there. We have a candidate that probably should continue barreling at a decent frequency. I think we'll go for pot. And again, I think it's a spot where we'll pot here and then probably not follow through on river unless we get there, would be my suspicion. I think we're going to realize a decent amount of fold equity here on the turn, and decent amount of fold equity here on the turn. Wow. This has been a bit of a blessed start, assuming we're not running into the Jack 10 here. So are we ever not jamming? I don't see a reason not to be jamming. His sets are all going to check back. His overpairs are never going to bet. He doesn't really have any bluffs in this line. Yeah, we kind of just, I think, need to stick in the money. It's a bit interesting because, like, what are we doing when we have a set here? When we have, like, top set of 9s, I guess we're checking. So do we ever want to trap with some 10x? Maybe in theory, but I think in practice, like, let's just jam this in. And fade the snap. Okay. Fade the snap from the Jack 10 and also fade the chop. Don't get any further value though. I think it's pretty hard to get paid further there on that run out. Yeah, I mean, insanely hot start in terms of just actually making hands right now. Poker's pretty easy when you make good hands. I think that is like one of the important things to keep in mind, like when you're tracking, how well you're doing, is just being like really objective as to how well or poorly you're running. Like we're clearly lined up to have, a nice winning session here. Gonna 3-bet the ace-10, given that we've like not V-pipped a hand. It's a little bit loose, it's okay, but I think we'll just 3-bet it pure when we've been so tight. Our image is going to be a bit tighter at the table. Yeah, it's important to be like really objective as to like how you're running and evaluating. When I reflect on this session, it's not necessarily that I'm going to reflect that I played super well. It's more that we've just made lots of good hands and gotten paid. Facing the 3/4 size bet, think we should defend with a spade. And against someone who's like c-bet at pure frequency so far, I think we should start with a defend. And with the ace-10 here, we should probably, I think we can bet this board high frequency. Going to be a board where we have all types of sizes, including probably jam at some frequency, not with this hand though, obviously. I think this hand just fits into like a B33 pretty nicely. And the pocket twos, I think we just are going to fold turn. I mean, yeah, I think just fold turn. It is going to be a turn card, which, like, I don't think enough people are going to bet a 9x here, even if they're supposed to. I think now we should probably bet small or we can check. Maybe we can bet small again. I'm just going to fold because I've also run down on time bank. I'm like a little bit suspicious here in that like I don't think he's betting 9x, so it's king x or bust, and he's in the small blind with a wide range, and small blind with a wide range, and like he's going to bluff the king at a super high frequency. He also just does have a bunch of king x, but equally he's got a bunch of other stuff which may all be inclined to bluff verse when he sees the king. So we bet small and we face jam. I don't think we want to consider call here. I think versus the small size, flush draws are going to probably peel at a higher frequency. There's going to be some queen x that, you know, he's got ace queen in range at like full frequency here that wants to that is going to be quite inclined to jam. So it's quite natural to jam your top pairs, and I think it's much more natural there when you have, you know, a drawing hand yourself to just click the call button. Like obviously there's going to be some flush draws that choose to jam there. I just think that it's going to be more weighted towards top pair. We do block some of his best hands. We do block ace queen, and we also block a set of tens. So not absurd. I just don't think going to be super overbluffed. Okay, we went for the c-bet with range on ace-ace-10 after opening the 9-5 suited. I don't think this is a hand that I want to barrel on the turn. I think we'll just check give this up. I think I'll probably prefer having an overcard, or, you know, generally base my like double barrels around having an overcard at least to the 10, right? So when he's got 10x here, we're just completely, our hand is completely dead. And I would probably want to have slightly higher standards in terms of bluffing random out. And when he checks back the turn and we get the river queen, I don't know if I perceive my fold equity to be particularly good here. Like if he has pocket fours, after, is he going to fold to my bet check bet line? He might. I'm not going to go for it. Maybe this is supposed to be mandatory. That I go for it here on like a pretty nice river for us. I'm just like, after he's checked turn, I think he doesn't have much air in his range, so I think we're, you know, betting into a range that's purely gonna have, you know, it is a made hand. And a made hand, or maybe some king high, maybe some like king jack or king queen, but both of those improved on the river. So we're trying to ask him to fold something, and I don't know whether the pool is going to give me credit for having enough value here. Like, yes, it's a favorable texture for us, but I can also see people just choosing to get pretty sticky on this board, or on this action sequence more like. The ace-9, just going to check when we get called in 3 spots. We don't really have a hand that is doing anything here. Clear fold, obviously, with the 9-5, and fold in the 10-4. And we'll let go of the ace-9 when we see a bet and a call. Okay, we do get the the open again from this guy. Just take a look at his previous hands, see whether he's been up to anything. So we're definitely going to go for a larger larger 3-bet sizing versus the 3.5. I haven't got any details on like how sticky he is. Yeah, we'll use some time bank here just to see if we can find any of his hands. I want to get a sense of like how wild this guy is as to how big I go. I don't really have time to get a very good sense of it. If he's wild at all, obviously, right? Like he could just be a recreational that opens big sizes with his good hands. That's also possible. Still just in the background going through the previous hands just to see if I can see any of his showdowns, which are not really coming through. So ace king no diamond here I think is okay to bet, and we can bet for big sizings against a recreational who we're expecting to have a relatively wide range. We do also just have a lot of showdown value against his range. I'm happy with check, and we can potentially look to call down turns and rivers depending on the action. So he checks again. The queen is an okay card. Sorry, I'm just also looking at a previous hand that he played. The queen is. I guess we should probably. I guess we should probably start betting now. Um, get his like sixes, eights, nines to fold, and then we can improve to an ace and a king and build a bigger pot or a jack as well. Probably worth starting to build a pot there. Is check okay on that turn? Probably as well. We get to realize our full equity there. We never get like jammed off by a queen or a set or something. Um, yeah, but I think both lines there are viable. Probably just start with range bet here on the king queen 5 against a fairly tight player, just going to be overfolded. Fold the king 9. I don't know if I ever finished my thought bubble on just like reflecting on results and being really objective as to like how well you're running. I think that's important to keep in mind in terms of like poker is not a linear progression in terms of your green line always going up. It's going to have ups and downs, and I suppose the important thing to keep track of is whether your level of play is up to the standard that you expect it to be. Are you making good decisions as opposed to are you making money? Is a better way to think about poker. And so then, with that in mind, I'm not going to finish this section and give myself a massive high five because, I won however much money. Because a lot of those were just spots where, we just made the best hand and didn't really have complicated decisions. Okay, so we've got the king jack here, facing what looks to be a relatively tight player. Think then proceeding with call is probably going to be best here. 4-bet is probably okay as well, but I will just call here pure. We flop a king. When we flop a king in a BVB pot here, we're like I'm just never going to be folding. Yeah, just not going to be doing any folding here. And if he's got ace king or king queen, that's good on him. So we do face the third pot. I think the reason being here as well, right, is that players are, to the extent that they're 3-betting polar enough, which maybe this guy isn't doing, given like he just looks to be relatively tighter. Is he 3-betting 10-3 suited? I'm not sure. But they'll start with like a range bet with third pot here. which, in a lot of spots from when you three bet the big blinds, you don't want to be range betting. And so if they do range bet, they carry too much air through to the turn. And so therefore, I'm just like not very inclined to fold when they're carrying through too much air when I've sort of flopped the top pair hand and blocking their value. So the 10 of diamonds is not an ideal card, if we're being honest. Yeah, not amazing, but still not planning on doing much folding, but now feeling much less comfortable about it. Okay, so we face 21.9 big blinds. Sorry, I'm just going to pull up the calculator just because I like seeing whether this is exactly 75% pot, i.e. a hotkey, which it looks like. It is exactly 75% pot versus some sort of custom sizing. Going to fold the king nine suited here. So we B75s. I don't think we have a decision here. I think we're just calling. There's also plenty of offsuit ace X, right? There's like some ace 2 off, ace 3 off that are here with the ace of diamonds that can all bluff. There's some ace queen, there's some ace jack off, right? There's plenty of those combos. Plenty of those combos that exist that could all fire through on the river here. How many suited combos are there? I mean, there's a decent amount, but I guess from the big blind here, right, we're going to have, yeah, I think enough offsuit junk that we just call if we face jam. So he does check river and we win. And he just had, yeah, the ace 5 off, no suit. So I guess that's what we mean, right? Like in terms of he's just gone a double barrel, no equity, with the ace 5, and like I'm not going to comment on whether that's like is he allowed to do that at any frequency? I'm not sure. But I would suggest that as soon as he starts doing that with a lot of his air, right? If he's doing that with his ace high air, he's probably doing it with his queen high air, and a bunch of other stuff, his jack high air, and is just going to be overbluffing, which was why we kind of approached that hand with the general principle of not doing much folding, even though the turn wasn't ideal. Okay, we've got the short stack here. Hopefully is going to double up. Yeah. Just takes it down. Obviously, we want the recreational to be winning hands, just not winning hands against us. We'll probably call it a session shortly. Yeah, pretty successful session. For 30 minutes of play, just finding a couple of nice spots on all the tables, really. I'll obviously keep playing these tables after I stop the recording. The having the nice spots at 2K is not always going to be the case. So you do need to sort of take advantage of those spots when they come up. But yeah, I might wrap it up there, given that we've got no action. But yeah, if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like, give it a comment. If you have any questions about any of the hands, happy to discuss those in the comments. And yeah, please give the video a like. That'll really help it reach more people. So if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.